The wait is finally over. After nearly 3 years, we are finally able to see Godzilla vs. Kong on the big screen, and it promises to be one of the greatest matchups in cinema history. I'm Zach from the Five Nights Tavern, and today we're going to be taking a look at this film to see if it lives up to the hype, or if it falls flat on its face. Let's get started. Quick note, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. The film only came out a couple of days ago at the time of me writing this, and I don't want to spoil any of the twists or specific plot points, so this is going to be more of a general discussion of the film and what I thought about it initially. But keep an eye out for a spoiler discussion coming out in the next few days between me and a couple of my buddies as we discuss and debate what we liked and disliked. With that being said, let's get into some background. Released on the 31st of March 2021, Godzilla vs. Kong has a couple of returning cast members from the previous Godzilla film, such as Millie Bobby Brown and Kyle Chandler. Other people have joined the cast as well, including Alexander Skarsgård, Rebecca Hall, Brian Tyree Henry, and Damian Beecher. I really hope I said that right. Now, on a budget of about $160 million, it has already made over $236 million international and about $50 million domestic at the time of writing this review around April the 4th. And that is extremely impressive for a movie still releasing in a pandemic. So it's already made its money back, which is really nice. And to top it all off, it is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes at the time of this recording, with about 76% of the critics liking it, but a very strong 93% of the audience enjoying it, making Godzilla vs. Kong a very strong contender going into 2021. The film itself, while shorter than the other entries in the MonsterVerse films, is very fun and helps to alleviate a few of the problems that most audience members had with the previous entries. The first thing that comes to mind are the human characters. Now, I know you need human characters in a movie like this, otherwise it's just CG monsters punching each other for an hour and a half. And while you can make the argument that people like me would definitely pay to just watch that, that's not really the point. The human characters in this movie, while present, aren't as prevalent as they have been before in previous MonsterVerse films. They're there, they have reasons to be there, but they're not given a whole lot of screen time to drag it out and make us wish that the monsters would just start fighting already. Our main characters are split into a couple of groups. You have the girl from the last movie, Madison, and a handful of her friends investigating this shady enterprise called Apex because they seem to be doing something to antagonize Godzilla. And meanwhile, you have a handful of scientists that are following King Kong around because they think he'll lead them to this idea of the Hollow Earth. So you have these groups that are following monsters around and are actively investigating monsters, so even if we're focused on them, the monsters aren't far behind. Now, the real reason that you and I are here is not for the human characters. They can be off doing their own thing, they have their own wants and desires, whatever. We are here for Godzilla and King Kong. And the movie really, really drives this home. Godzilla and Kong are at the forefront of almost everything, with Kong having a bit more screen time, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But these two are really stealing the show, especially in the scenes that they are actually fighting, and it really is impressive. Now, we're going to go ahead and start with Godzilla first, and then we'll move on to Kong, because there's a few other things to talk about with Kong. But Godzilla, while great, does seem a little off at first, and it actually led me and a couple of my buddies to incorrectly guess something about him. But Godzilla seems a little smaller, faster, and somehow weaker. Now, he still looks great. He has basically the same design as the last couple of movies, but he now stands eye to eye with King Kong, but Kong doesn't seem too much taller. He flinches when hit with military equipment, and overall, he seems faster as if to match Kong's speed. Otherwise, it would be almost like a tank fighting a motorcycle, if you want to think of it that way. Godzilla seems a little bit nerfed for this fight, but it could just be me, and if you have any thoughts about this, if you've seen it and know what I'm talking about, I'd like to hear your opinions in the comments below. But Godzilla did seem just a little off to me, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I'd like to know what anyone else has to think about that. Another thing about Godzilla in this movie, which I found to be extremely interesting, is the human characters seem to think of him as sort of an antagonist, at least in the first half of the movie. Like, they're actively trying to avoid him because he is now the established dominant force on Earth. So when he starts acting weird at the beginning of the movie, and the idea is that we need King Kong for something, we need to try to avoid Godzilla because Godzilla will just show up and wreck all their plans. And even the human characters seem to think that King Kong can't really defend himself against Godzilla. So even though Godzilla is clearly not really the antagonist, the way that he's framed makes it interesting because he's like this force of nature that we have to avoid at all costs, because if he detects us or catches up with us, he's really going to mess us up. And I really like that idea because Godzilla really is just a creature, and he's the dominant creature. He's extremely powerful, and there's nothing anyone can really do to stop him if he sets his eye on you. Now, Kong is actually more prevalent in this film than Godzilla because he has a stake in the plot and the humans are using him for something. And he has received a major upgrade since we last saw him in Kong Skull Island. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger, and he's way smarter, showing a level of intelligence that makes him a good contender to fight against Godzilla. He strategizes, he's able to use buildings in a clever way, he can use tools like that axe that we saw in the trailer. Kong has gotten a major power boost here. And he has some more emotional moments with some of the human characters, which is a really nice touch in this movie. He shares a nice connection with this deaf girl, who is one of my favorite characters in the movie, even though she doesn't really speak very much. She has this unique connection with King Kong that I really appreciate, as if almost like a father-daughter kind of relationship where Kong looks out for her, she looks out for him, and it really is touching, and I appreciated that, and it gives some personification to King Kong that is kind of needed with these creatures, because we do need something to latch onto with them. We know that King Kong is different than Godzilla because Godzilla is more of this malevolent beast that does show intelligence and understanding, but he really knows that he's at the top of the food chain, whereas Kong can take a step back and show some emotion and understanding, and he's more emotive than Godzilla. And I think that it was really a good call to make him have a connection with at least one human character so that we can latch onto him in that way. Now that we've talked about Godzilla and Kong a little bit, we should really talk about their fights because they are really, really good in this film. And it is a far cry from the nonsense that we got in the 2014 Godzilla where it kept cutting away from the fights. We are right back to where we are with King of the Monsters, with these two fights being front and center, and they are glorious. Kong and Godzilla fight a couple of times. The one we see in the trailer is the ship fight. They fight on the water. That's a really good fight, even though it seems one-sided towards Godzilla. They also fight in Hong Kong, and that's a really great fight because, Kong has the ability to jump on buildings, and he has that axe. And Godzilla is able to use himself almost like a portable artillery piece. He can just unleash nuclear fire everywhere. And these two have a lot of great special attacks, and their ability to bounce off of each other in a fight scenario was really great, because I was a little bit worried about these fights going into the movie. If you've been on the internet for more than 5 minutes, you can see people arguing about it all the time, how Godzilla would stomp on Kong, how Kong is way faster than Godzilla, he'll just outrun him. And people were just so convinced that one side or the other was going to just dominate this fight. And to see them being almost equal for all of the fights was really refreshing, because I was worried that it's Godzilla, right? He's gonna win. Like, even I had that fear, but the way that those two fought was just really fantastic, and I really hope that everyone enjoys it when they finally get around to watching this movie, because it is a highlight of not only this movie, but the MonsterVerse in general. It really is fantastic. I cannot sing enough praise for those fights. Overall, Godzilla vs. Kong is a fantastic movie and a great addition to the MonsterVerse. It's a little bit on the shorter side, but it makes up for it just by being fun. Watching Godzilla and Kong's duke it out like this is just great, and it leaves a smile on my face when I just want some dumb fun with my movies. And as an added bonus, I went to go see this movie on opening day. I watched it in a big theater, I enjoyed myself, and then when I walked out, I thought to myself, man, maybe I missed something there, or maybe I want to go Easter egg hunting, I want to watch it again. And then I was like, oh yeah, hey, look at that. I can just go home and sit down, and I can load it up on HBO Max. That is fantastic that I can stream this movie over and over and over again, and it lets me appreciate it more. And that is a really great bonus for movies like this, so I do appreciate that. The film is off to a really strong start. I hope that everyone enjoys it. It does have a couple of problems here or there, but we'll get to that in the spoiler discussion that I'll be working on in the next few days. But I'm going to give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. I really appreciate this movie. I enjoyed what great fun it was for what it was. This isn't Citizen Kane. This is Godzilla vs. Kong, so you got to go in and understand what you're getting into. And it really is fun if you can just let go, have a good laugh, eat some popcorn, and have a great time, especially in these days. With that all being said, I'm Zach from the Five Nights Tavern. I hope everyone stays safe and enjoys these movies. And as always, cheers.